Welcome to the latest episode of Dig This, a podcast by the Quarry. Today, in the studio with me is Dirk Bischoff, and we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship, founders, startups, that whole ecosystem and what can be done in Guernsey to sort of boost it and really turbocharge it and get it moving even more than it is. Like maybe just start with your background a little bit and what experience you've got in this area.
Hi, I'm Dirk, and I'm a new addition to Guernsey. I have been here now for the last 6 months, and really, I think it's very hard not to fall in love with Guernsey once you're here and you meet many people who are very passionate, and then you can see how you can apply yourself and how you can work and do things. But originally, I'm from East Germany. I've had 10 years of pre-wall, and then the rest of post-wall. Which was also quite formative. Like to me, I was around 10 when the wall came down, and then I could see what's happening to my parents and all the businesses in East Germany. Many of them were asset stripped and sold off for parts, and I could see how my dad and his generation were then buying these businesses for 1 Deutschmark back in the days, and then they would build their own businesses around them, on top of them, alongside them. And to me, this were really formative years where my dad built a boutique metal engineering company from his failing state employer. And then many of his friends were doing stuff around electronics or building, and they all built small businesses. And very quickly, when there was very high unemployment, very quickly, these young small businesses would then all start to employ people again, to have a job, support their families and so on. So to me, this was my introduction to entrepreneurship, seeing my dad build his first business out of the ruins of a failing state employer, and then very quickly build it into a 10-people boutique metal engineering company, which I was meant to be taking over, but I ran away. I ran away in the late 90s, early 2000s, because I didn't want to be a metal engineer. After 3.5 years of metal engineering, it was definitely one thing I did not want to do. But I could see myself as an entrepreneur. But it took me to England, where I then started a number of impact companies, solar PV installers, charities, all kinds, to kind of realize what I wanted to do, which is to build businesses that do more than just make a financial return, but they also generate an impact return.
And that time, that's taken you to London.
So 2001, I left Germany. I did my National Alternative Service, which was the last kind of thing that holds you there. So either go army or go to the National Alternative Service. And after that was complete, I was like, I don't want to stay in East Germany. Because still, youth unemployment was like 40%. You'd have to either go to West Germany or you'd have to go somewhere else if you didn't want to stick around. And then I came to London for a 3-month work placement through the Europeans Leonardo da Vinci program, as it was back in the days, now Erasmus.
Sure.
And after 3 months, I knew I'm going to stay. Came back, packed my bags, and then moved.
What was the first thing you sort of picked up in London? How do you even get this kind of thing going?
What do you mean?
Like once you arrive in London, what do you do? What's the...
So the thing that kind of seems to be carrying throughout my life is that when I went there, I went together with a group of other 15 young East Germans that were all in between jobs or looking to figure out what to do with their lives. So we all came to London. We had a program for 3 months. We went to a uni to do some more English. We were all in work placement. So we were all given a work placement in whatever area we wanted to. We had an accompanying program that would help us figure out what do we want to do with the rest of our lives. So we were able to ask ourselves all these hard questions when we were in our early 20s, and for the first time also understanding that the world is our oyster. It's not what our parents wanted us to do, which is up until that point in time, I was like, oh, metal engineering, take off my dad's company, which is not what I wanted to do. But all of a sudden it's like, we were never asked, what do you want to do? And all of a sudden we were all, hanging with this question and trying to find an answer. So for me, it became clear I didn't want to be in Germany. I found England's flexibility, and for me also the ability to study in the UK. When Germany told me, you can't study here because you don't have A-levels, UK didn't care. I was a mature student, I can just start studying if I wanted to. I was like, okay, that seems much more flexible than Germany. I'd rather be here where things are much more flexible and they look at talent more than they look at qualifications or having the right high school diploma or whatever. So that to me was the beginning of, oh, I want to be in a place that's very flexible, very open, and where people can do what they want to do.
And I mean, that's 20 odd years in London, wasn't it? So if you look back on that time, what stood out for you?
I mean, the beginning of the 2000s, the opportunity was everywhere. But to me, also already very quickly, I was like, I felt very lucky being able to, find this program, go to England. I had the 3 months of support where you had your housing covered by the European Union, through the program. I felt very supported and very lucky to have been given this chance. So what I then got involved in was with that company that brought us over. And we then, this was a voluntary association back in the days. And to me, we then turned this into a non-profit, like a fully registered non-profit. And we would then build these programs with Italy. So sending Brits to Italy, Italians coming to the UK, with Germany, with France, with Slovakia, with many countries, where we then started building these programs to send young adults, 18 to 30, back and forth to help them figure out, what do you want to do with your life, if you could do anything. So building that up, to me, was the first thing that I got going when I came to the UK and then stuck. This was my first company, essentially. But also building this with partners, university partners, work placement companies, large ones like multinational companies, small coffee shops around the corner, and understanding the world of work by facilitating exchanges. That to me was really exciting back in the days.
It doesn't sound like a real melting pot of ideas.
It was,
as well.
absolutely.
Different cultures, different backgrounds.
Absolutely, yeah. And understanding what European culture means in context. How do the Brits behave when we send them abroad? How do Europeans behave when they come to England? And being at this interchange of people's ideas, workplaces, studying, university, figuring out what people want to do with their own lives. That was really exciting. As a young adult back in the days, yeah.
What is it about ventures and startups that has really grabbed you?
Really from the get-go, from when I saw my dad and his generation build their businesses, my first job was cleaning machinery, cleaning machines, cleaning the floor. But I could see that what my dad is building, up until he sold his company a few years ago, he never had a website. I think he just about was in the phone book with his name and his phone number. But he said, and his aspiration was always, deliver a good job to your customers, treat your customers well, and you will not have to look after marketing and PR and everything. You're just delivering value day in, day out, and you do good stuff with your customers in terms of looking after them, figuring out if they have a real problem. You're going to turn up on their doorstep and say, hey, how can I help? And to me, this ability to find problems and build a solution around it, that was always very appealing when it comes to startups. And having worked with lots of young entrepreneurs in the early 2000s up until we then started our entrepreneurship organization, it was seeing that you didn't have to have a good school education to become a good entrepreneur. Sometimes because you didn't have a good school education, you are having to find other workarounds of like building a product or building a service that others might not have thought about because you have different life experience or vocational experience or something that didn't come with university. So it was, to me, it's being able to find a way to connect problems and solutions in an entrepreneurial way that always made it very attractive to stay in that space.
I find it really interesting you talk about like people from maybe not such an educational background, but being really good in this space because they see things differently and they see problems differently and they see solutions differently, and it's not necessarily textbook.
Yeah. If I think about it, I'm a trained metal engineer. If what I learned in those 3.5 years, even though I didn't continue with it was to plan my work and to be diligent and to understand how to prepare things, because if you get the preparation wrong with one of those complicated and complex tools that we were engineering, you'd have to start again, and that's hundreds of thousands of pounds easily wasted if you just get something halfway through wrong. So planning things meticulously, that kind of stayed with me, but I just didn't feel the passion for metal engineering. But the idea of a strong vocational training in whatever industry, I think, whilst Germany is quite good at that, other places could become good at it again, and you don't have to push everybody into university when clearly not everybody wants to be in university, or now it's a declining value proposition in the age of AI and knowledge, information on our fingertips. So is university still appropriate for everybody who wants to start a business? Probably not.
Yeah, no, I think we can get on maybe a bit later about how technology is changing and impacting and startups and entrepreneurship in general. But your later time in London, what has that involved?
So I reckon, so in the last 15 years, it was specifically entrepreneurship.
Sure.
So building idea stage, startup, growth programs, and a venture fund that sits alongside. It would then make small investments into these idea stage, startup and growth businesses, only from a grant point of view, to help them get something off the ground. So we probably ran, 120 to 150 of these programs, supporting about 2,000 founders from idea to start to grow through these programs, but supporting a total bulk of like 10,000 founders into business through mentoring, coaching, through events and so on. And having been part of so many founders' journeys, you can also see how entrepreneurship has changed in that space. You can't anymore write a business plan and expect to get funding for it, because now with AI, anybody can build something that is good enough to get it to a customer. So that's really changed from kind of pre-2020 to now. But also that, in the UK, you've got 750, 850 enterprise support programs that are supporting a bulk of 20,000 founders every single year. There's a real momentum that is gathering on an annual basis of people with ideas start and grow that are then looking for finance. You have so many syndicates, you have so many angels, you have so many kind of pre-seed, seed stage funds that are picking up these founders. And some of them are growing into the hundreds of millions or even billion plus valuations with their companies. That's quite exciting. And the UK across Europe is still startup country number one.
And it's obviously like the kind of lessons that Guernsey should be taking note of, really, because it's what we need to do to turbocharge or to boost our economy. It's like make the most of the talent that we've got on island. Since you've come to Guernsey, what stood out for you?
I mean, one thing that stood, but again, I got very lucky. Like when I use LinkedIn quite often, but when I said like, oh, we're looking to move here, or I'm looking to move here, a couple of people just said, hey, like when you land, just say hi and we'll go for coffee. So I've had a lot of coffees, and I now had to switch to decaf as it gets to the afternoon, because you can meet people here very easily. And I was lucky to meet, I would say, the right people very early on, who would be very open in terms of like, introducing you to people who are doing something similar, or people you could be working with, or people you could be building something with. So to me, what stood out is everybody is very warm and welcoming and very personable, and you can meet anyone for coffee and just see how you get on. I feel like there's a lot of talent here in Guernsey that's currently quite channeled towards financial services. And I think financial services makes up 30% of total GDP in Guernsey. But you also have a lot of people imagining and looking to see what else could be done alongside the financial services industry that could either be a small business, or could be new initiatives, new projects, new programs that could be built to start thinking about what would happen if financial services will only at some point in the future be worth 20% or 20% of total GDP contribution and employment contribution. But to me, when I saw a lot of the people building on this, to me it was quite obvious you should have started 5 years ago, and we're getting to a point where, are we getting too late for some of these initiatives? Because I know it's taken 10 years for us to start supporting, 2,000 founders from idea to start to grow. And each of these businesses just takes time to grow. So if you're looking at the initiative that supports them, you almost want to be like, we should start stuff 5 years ago so that in 5 years' time, we can see the results and we can get the fruits of our labor. So that was the one feeling that I had very quickly when I was like, where are the startup and idea stage programs? And where is, which programs bring investors and startups together? And then I was like, well, there isn't one at the moment. I was like, let's try and build one.
So that brings us beautifully into your initiative, Pitch Guernsey. Talk to me a little bit about that setup and what you hope it's going to achieve.
So in one way, to me, Pitch Guernsey is an opportunity to bring together both UK and Guernsey-based startups and get them exposed to Guernsey's business landscape. So businesses that are here on island that might think maybe they want to outsource innovation to a startups or scale up, or they want to maybe work together with them. So it's not just bringing investors and startups together, it's really kind of thinking more broadly. Might there be companies in the UK that want to work with Guernsey-based businesses and vice versa? And yes, some of them are startups, some of them are a little bit older, but can we build more collaborative initiatives, efforts, or business relationships? And then number two is, yes, the companies that we're looking to pitch, they're looking for growth finance. Do we have investors who want to be part of their journey to help them grow and scale? But to me, generally, like Pitch Guernsey will hopefully become a really friendly, well-functioning shopfront that is the fancy exterior. The more critical thing is the less sexy plumbing that needs to be worked on, which is the enterprise support programs, helping people start something. It's helping people figure out if they want to use AI. Could we build something that just helps people understand AI better, how they might use it for their personal or workplaces? So there's a lot more innovation that needs to be kind of happening in the background to bring the talent that is available into the entrepreneurship kind of trajectory.
Do you have any sense of the barriers in the background as well? I mean,
100%.
Speak to us a little bit about that.
So, and I've worked a lot in Japan over the last 17 years. I've been there every year, many months, and working with entrepreneurs in Japan and with a very large Japanese entrepreneurship ecosystem provider that's been doing this for 30 years. And I've felt a lot of similarities when it came to how I felt being in Guernsey to how I feel when I'm in Japan. And it's weird because I don't feel like that when I'm in the UK. But when I'm in Guernsey or in Japan, I feel very similarly that there's high talent, but also inhibition to try and test and to stick your head above the parapet in a way, because and similarly in Japan, people don't want to be first, because if you're first, you risk losing face if something goes wrong, or it might be a very public failure, or you're very happy to be second or third, but you might not want to be first. So coming here, it felt very similarly that there was a bit of an inhibition of people to try stuff and test things, because in many of the newspapers, I can now see that you're just going to get trashed for trying, and here's somebody, they tried this and it failed, and it seems quite public. When to me, you should flip it around and be like, we should get everybody to try something new and test something new, so that failing or trying or experimenting becomes part of what people do here. And the worst that could happen is you learn something and then you do it differently the next time. But that feeling of not wanting to stick out, or not being too open about something, or not sharing because how is it going to be perceived? Like that feeling I have in Japan and here in Guernsey, and that was interesting. But likewise, I feel like there are many people who are doing new things, but often they're doing things in silos. So I think connecting the innovators a little bit more, helping the innovators have the right resources and infrastructure. And that was my role in the UK, where we brought together resources from corporate partners, either sponsorship, space, mentoring, coaching. We were bringing together resources from trusts and foundations who wanted to work with more entrepreneurs in specific local communities or on specific social or environmental topics. And we brought together local government who wanted their local authority, for example, Southwark or Lambeth, who wanted to have more entrepreneurs in their local authority. So we would pool these resources into new programs, and then very quickly you can see how 10, 50, 100, 200, 1,000 people have the right support to go from idea to start to grow. And some of them have built £100 million businesses, but they had the support at the very beginning.
And it feels like that message is so important. It feels like Guernsey has so many opportunities and so many, like they talk about the superpower being that connection. So what you felt when you had a coffee and had another coffee, and you can very quickly join the dots.
Yeah.
But actually the next stage is what becomes difficult because of the fear of failure.
Yeah. So to me, I've suggested to a couple of people, couldn't we run fuck-up nights? Like in London, we ran, pizza, beer, and tell us your worst story of how you fucked up in your business and what you learned from it. And for example, doing something like that, where people can share, the things that they messed up in their business and how that failure has then led them to doing something different. And often it scaled and grew the business in a way that they couldn't imagine. So maybe doing more of these here, or being more open on like who's starting what and what support can they have as they're starting and trying things, and just making things a bit more easier. Because it's also quite expensive to start something in Guernsey. Like in the UK, up until a few years ago, it was £20 to start a company through Companies House. It would take me 10 minutes to write if you adopt the same articles and memorandum of association. £20, 10 minutes, company open. I think in Guernsey, it's much more expensive to start something, like to start a limited company. And that's obviously also an inhibition for founders saying, hey, I want to start and I need to be a limited company for the various reasons, protection, etc. But then if it's so expensive, then that's a factor impacting early stage founders if they're faced with a really high cost barrier immediately, even before starting.
Yeah, and you spoke a little bit about the time it takes as well for a small enterprise to grow, to be a successful business. And I guess it's those early years that's so difficult to stick with what you're doing.
Yeah.
When you feel it's tough,
Yeah. So that's another thing. Building a community of people that are starting something, testing something, trying something. So the way that we did it in the UK is we built cohort-based programs where a whole cohort of people at the same stage, like either idea starts or grow, they'd be in the same cohort. They have mentors, they have coaches, and then they have the inter-cohort support. Hopefully, some of them have started trading together. They're learning together. They're becoming each other's best support network, essentially, as well as us supporting from the outside. But often the founders themselves will become a really tight support structure as they go and build their businesses over time. So those things will come naturally, but the resources to have these idea stage startup and growth program, together with ideally some philanthropic and grant funding for people, again, to test stuff, to try things, to ask new questions, find new answers. That infrastructure currently is missing. And with Pitch Guernsey, we're at least trying to figure out, can we put some of the venture capital opportunities together with some of these companies starting, but it needs more than just that level of trying and testing and investing.
Yeah, so obviously it's an interesting time to come into this space as well, because we've got the innovation board looking at what can be done and can be done differently. And we're sitting here today in the digital greenhouse. And, like, we both have operations operating from here, so some of the background's there, but maybe some of it
exists already. But But I think much more needs to be done. And to me, much more needs to be done that is bringing together businesses, like both large and small. Ideally, get some of the businesses also contributing for their corporate social responsibility initiatives. If they have a foundation, can more money from large or from businesses who want to do well and support the ecosystem, can they support a mentoring scheme or mentoring program? Do they want to get involved in an idea stage or startup or growth program? Then you also need government saying, hey, entrepreneurship is really important to us. We don't want to, or we can't rely on the financial services industry for the next 20, 50 years because it's changing. We want to make sure that everybody who wants to start a business in Guernsey has the chance to do so. And you need spaces like this that are offering desk space, and you need the right programs for it. And then also you need some of the trust and foundations maybe saying, hey, whilst we also support the arts sector and sustainability on the island, we also want to make sure that everybody has a chance to build a business, even if they might currently be underemployed or not in education, not in training, and they might not have they can't go to their friends and family and raise a friends and family round, because if they were to do so, they would be asked to then sponsor. But they might make really great entrepreneurs. They might want to start a landscaping business, or they might want to start a cafe. Those are all really critical things. But if you don't have the bandwidth and the support and some of the money to try, you'd never know. Yeah. And to me, that's the puzzle piece. And one of the people I worked with a long time at he's one of the amazing super connectors at NatWest in the UK, and he always talked about entrepreneurship as being a tapestry where you have a multitude of organizations all doing something really specific, either geographically or with this, sometimes might be female founders, some might be on sustainability focused programs, but you have this tapestry of enterprise support where a lot of people get a chance to then build something. But here in Guernsey, it feels like the tapestry is currently missing, and that's exciting because we could build it.
It's opportunities.
It's an opportunity to build something new and to tell a new story about Guernsey.
This is, if you were going to give, I guess one, I say one, that's probably pretty harsh, a few key messages to both the decision makers out there, but also the people that might be thinking about starting a new business. What are those key messages that you give out? Maybe start with the decision makers.
I think there are many initiatives that are now starting here in Guernsey, both happening here inside the Digital Greenhouse, but also other initiatives. Look at these initiatives and how they will fit in with the financial services reports, like the Oliver Wyman report that's recently come. How can some of these initiatives be critical in starting them now to then work towards these longer term goals? And there are a number of initiatives already that are happening, so identify them and then fund them. I think that's one. Number two, government should always be a convener between private sector, government, third sector. How can there be more convening happening that will then see these initiatives come to fruition? Number two. Number three, I think Guernsey as a brand, like I hadn't heard of Guernsey up until I came here, but I was like, oh my God, like why wouldn't you want to come to Guernsey? It's such a nice place, so friendly, really capable, competent, high talent. People know what they're doing, but to me it feels like it's punching below its capability. So brand Guernsey to me should be flag waved much more openly than it currently is. And not just for high net worth individuals, I think for people who want to try something, test something. As a small island, Guernsey could be a really interesting test bed for new ideas, both regulatory, tokenization, blockchain, kind of cryptocurrency, as well as new entrepreneurial ideas. Guernsey could be really like a hotbed for that. So more experimentation, more trying, alongside convening and funding.
And the flip side of that, for the people that are maybe starting on their journey, thinking about starting on their journey.
Yeah, find people that have ideally already started and built something before. See if you can secure them as a mentor. So to me, mentorship has been one of the biggest gifts that keeps on giving. Having a good mentor and then being a good mentor, that's really critical. And then ideally, making themselves known to whether it's a digital greenhouse or other places to say, hey, I want to start something. What do I need? And then slowly figuring out who are the people starting, what do they need, what do they want, where are they at right now, and then slowly building the support programs one by one around them. So it's really done from the ground up.
That's fantastic. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for your time. It's been a pleasure. And you can tell, like I'm a Guernsey fan. It didn't take long to make me one, but I'm now hoping that more people will see all the good things that are happening here and might want to come and visit or start a business here.
Thank you for tuning into this podcast. If you've got all this way, I'm really hoping that you've enjoyed our work. There's a few things you can do though to support us. Follow, like, subscribe, share, whatever you can do to help spread the word of the Quarry. The other thing you can do is head on over to our website, where you can become a member and really support independent local news.